Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 173. I hope you're all having an amazing weekend out there. What a wild week in the Matrix it has been. Just a couple days ago, we had a very important event go on in the world stage, which I believe is giving us some code to work with for a significant event coming up later this year. We will be recapping everything that's went down over this past week from my last Red Pill dedicated to the Trump assassination attempt, and the code that I shared with you in that podcast had a very important date, which is just around the corner next week. So I'll be covering that and many more things in today's podcast. But before we get started, get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little bit earlier out there, or if it's a little bit later in the night, maybe a glass of wine or a glass of beer or any beverage of your choice. I myself am drinking nothing today. I forgot to bring a cup of water. So, it is what it is. I appreciate every single one of you for showing up. It's been really epic to watch how this month of July has been. We have so much to cover today, but before I get into that, just really quickly, if you're new here to the Wolfpack, welcome. It's so great to have you here with us. If you've yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message here on Patreon with your Discord username. If you can't figure that out, just click on my profile picture here in the Red Pill podcast posted on Patreon. It will send you to another screen where you can send me a message, and all you got to do is DM me on Patreon with your Discord username, and I will reply back to you as soon as possible with a Discord server invite. Please don't comment anything below or in the or email me regarding your Discord details. I won't be able to help you out that way. So just follow those instructions and it will be all good in the hood. And we'll be covering about 4 different altcoins today. We have Nano, Energy Web Token, WorldCoin. It's been a little bit since we've went over that, and I believe this will be a new one, Stobox, ticker STBU. Be pretty interesting. And don't worry, perhaps next week, I believe next week I will do a recap of the Year of the Dragon S&P chart, the S&P 500, and going through the month by month as we've been doing. It's been really fun to track that and see how it goes. Of course, every Year of the Dragon is also a presidential election year, so there's a lot of patterns with that too. And I have something to reveal with a finding that came from my Bearable Bull interview that I did with him. So we will be talking about that next week, but for today we have very spicy price action in the crypto market. Seemingly, as the stock market has been selling off, we've seen the crypto market recover, and we're kind of caught up now to what the stock market has been doing, but not as much in that price discovery vibe as the NASDAQ or S&P, for instance, but getting a little bit of expansion in the Russell. And it's seeming that we're getting real close to that price discovery moment for Bitcoin, which I believe will trigger the next phase of this bull run. So let's just get into today's podcast in regards to our decode, and then of course we'll be covering the charts and everything you need to know with that. I could probably tell already some of you out there that have been taking my courses or have been really focused on the TA side of things. You see this really crucial cross that we've just got of this 8 simple moving average above the 55 simple moving average. You know what that is. That's the wolf cross. And whenever we get those, it's typically a time to see more upside potential. Hence, we saw that over here, more upside potential. And when we get in the other direction, that's where we see our dumps. And that's what happened right over here. And you see what that led to. So we have a lot to cover with the TA section, but I need to go over these dates ahead. I believe we have maybe one of the most important date connections I've ever found today in this podcast, and it's right around the corner, literally next week. So really excited to share that code with you, and of course really excited to hear your feedback from you other decoders here in our community and sharing the great work that you guys have. So we went from the crypto market dropping another leg lower at the beginning of the month to Hurricane Beryl, following the same exact path of totality as the Great American Eclipse on April 8th, exactly 3 months later, to the Donald Trump assassination attempt with a bullet missing his head by just a couple millimeters and hitting the crowd. Essentially, it was a crowd strike. To just a couple days ago, having one of the biggest cyber attacks ever, which was allegedly triggered by a faulty update that had an error in its code from a cybersecurity company called CrowdStrike. Coincidence? Even this logo is really interesting. I talked a little bit about it in my live stream yesterday, so go check that out. But this event went down on July 19th, which, let me get into the code over here. So we have July 19th being the 201st day of the year, the mirror of the 102. We talk about this number 21 a lot here because of its ties to Saturn being Father Time, and that being Satoshi, 21 million Bitcoin in supply, and all of that stuff that we've been tracking along with. If you have my crypto decoding blueprint, you are well informed on what's going on here with the mythology of the crypto market. But this 201 is really popular here in the truther communities in regards to Event 201. And that Event 201 happened back in October of 2019, just months into the start of the Wuhan thing and then what became the C19 pandemic. So we are laying the groundwork and the foundation for what this is going to become. But if you have no idea what Event 201 was, it was a tabletop exercise of a pandemic, effectively. And this recent cyber attack that we had, the CrowdStrike update failure, it seemed more like an exercise rather than something as big, of course, as like C19 was. But that's kind of my theory here, is it was like not like a soft exercise. It was a pretty hard exercise because it created a lot of havoc. Anyone that was flying on that date, that was flying with one of those airlines, or I heard there was a lot of stuff going on in Europe too, not just the US, perhaps other things going on in the world stage, but it even affected the banking sector. I think the London Stock Exchange was having issues. Lots of banks were having problems. So this affected so many things. This mistake, they're calling it. But I believe it was 100% planned, of course, like all things, on the exact date that it needed to happen on, the 201 date. And the fact that it is an exercise, I believe this could be giving us something to consider for what could be happening in the future. Similarly to like the relationship between Event 201 and C19. So consider that Event 201 was on October 18th of 2019, and tying it to the day that the WHO declared the pandemic, which was March 11th, 2020. This was about 145 days apart, a little shy of 5 months. Now, if we were to take 145 days after July 19th, which just happened, it would be putting us into December 11th of this year. So this doesn't really stick out to me as much, like this date of December 11th, but what does is the following date, December 12th. This, I believe, is something that has some code in it that we could work with, and code that we see in other big events that have unfolded on the world stage. For instance, the 68 double-digit date numerology, that's the war code. And this is where yesterday comes into play with what happened in Yemen. And now ISIS is back in the conversation. So we just moved from Clown World 2.0 into Clown World 3.0. Can you believe they pulled the ISIS card again? Like, okay, mamma mia. But seriously, December 12th could be something here because we have it being the day leaving 19 days left in the year. Remember, we brought up the theme of C19 before. That's going to be important for the rest of today's decode because C19 and 9/11 have a relationship to each other from this decoding perspective and from what they both caused, what they both led to. One was a war on freedom. One was a war, I should be careful when I say that. One was this war on terror, and the other one was the war on germs. Both had their effects the way that they, you guys know how it all went down, so we don't really need a deep dive. You guys are conscious enough and aware enough. And just to stick back to today's decode, there is something that you're going to continue to hear over and over again regarding C19 and 9/11. So just wanted to get that out of the way. The significance of the number 19 here. So we have 19 days left in the year on December 12th. We were just talking about C19. This CrowdStrike ritual happened on the 19th day of this month. The former president of Iran died on May 19th, the 19th day of May. Also a 68 date numerology. And the date of Donald Trump's assassination attempt was a 19 date numerology. As you can see right there, July 13th was a 19 standard date numerology. The next cyber polygon is actually, it's literally going to be on September 11th, which is also a 19 date numerology. You can't make this shit up. And if you watched the last Red Pill when I decoded the Trump assassination attempt, you know about the connections I made to 9/11 and Trump, with the analogical first tower being the momentary arrest he had when he was arrested in that famous mugshot that he turned into merch. He turns everything that happens to him into merch. He's a real businessman. But the first tower would be the arrest attempt that was successful and that cultural moment back in August of last year. And then the second tower, or the twin tower, would be the assassination attempt that was just last week. And then the next ritual, part of the ritual phase, would be the Pentagon, or Building 7, Tower 7, if you wanted to call it that. And this would complete that ritual. So my intuition says that Building 7 is likely to be Biden. And the Pentagon ritual is the real incoming cyber attack. The real one, not the shit that happened a couple days ago where it was like momentary problem. Like, I'm talking about something much more significant, much bigger than what just happened a couple days ago. Perhaps something that could last like 3 full days. And then that would be like the 3 days of darkness. Like, that sort of is where my intuition's headed. Now, please know that I'm not saying this to spread fear porn. I am really just tapping into my intuition as a decoder and considering what we're up against here. I don't want to get too ahead of myself decoding all the way out in December, but once I got into a flow state while decoding this, I immediately start taking notes and I immediately have to share it with you guys, and I know you appreciate that. So please know that this isn't to spread fear. You guys know me by now. That's not my intent here. I'm just tapped into the code. I'm sharing what I'm seeing, and it's really sad and unfortunate that we're in this environment that we're in today that has war as a big part of the conversation. We have political theater and distractions going on while real people are losing their lives, and it's sick. It's really sick, but I and you cannot do anything about it. All we can do is spread the knowledge and awareness, keep ourselves as present as possible, don't lose any prana to it, and protect you and your family the best you possibly can, and in any way you possibly can. If you're aware of anyone, friends or family that are in these volatile areas, it might be wise to share with them these types of pieces of information and awareness so that they can relocate before things really start getting off the rails. But I think what we just watched happen a couple days ago with this CrowdStrike thing is very telling of what they're planning to do next. And we've all heard of it from Cyber Polygon back, what was that, 2020, July, coincidentally? I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, July 2021, I believe. And a lot of people were under this belief that we were going to have a mirroring effect like we had with Event 201. So like 4 months and 20 days or so after Cyber Polygon in 2021, some people were believing we were going to have like a C19 sort of thing, but with the cyber pandemic. So I am not one to believe it's going to be global. I don't think it's going to be like this complete reset of our whole banking system, or a reset of, of like a global blackout. I don't see that. I don't think it's going to be so extreme. I think right now they'll do what they've been doing. It's just like the totalitarian tiptoe. Dominoes are falling here. We already have pockets of the world that are on a social score system, that are already very technologically advanced, that are already ready to chip themselves, like, all of that stuff. It's already kind of happened in enough places, notably Israel. Back in C19, if you wanted to order at a McDonald's in certain places, you needed to have the jab pass. Isn't that pretty ironic? You needed to take that and get a pass to go eat barely food. I don't even know. Can we call that food? Somebody believes it is. But getting back to today's decode, one more element to tie back into all of this has to deal with this number 49. You guys have been hearing me talk a lot about the number 49 this year. We have the 49th week of the year to keep in mind, December 2nd through December 8th. Again, I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself here, but I believe there's something I'm onto. And 49th week of the year, December 2nd through December 8th. And we have December 8th I want to go to really quickly. And this is the same date numerology as 9/11 this year. But more importantly, we have some other code, which is the 19 date numerology. I already pointed out all the 19s before. It's the day leaving 23 days left in the year. And on December 8th, it will be after the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. We're literally connecting it directly to that date. December 8th is also the 343rd day of the year. 343 is 7 times 7 times 7. So let me just quickly show you this. So remember, look, 7 times 7 is 49, and we're talking about 49 right now. Then we have the 7 times 7 times 7, or the jackpot number, 343. 343 in the 49th week of the year. Excuse me. So December 8th is happening on a weekend. And this is important because a lot of these big events that have been happening, especially during this year, have been during weekends. One great example would be something we talked about before it happened, the Iran drone strike on Israel. It landed on a Saturday, April 13th. A month later, the former president of Iran, tied to the same country, same vibe, this was on a Sunday when he magically died in a helicopter crash. And then just a week ago, July 13th, we were talking about Trump assassination attempt that happened on a Saturday, on a weekend. Yesterday, we had the next pulse in this war with an airstrike in Yemen, also on a Saturday, on a weekend. Next week, we have July 27th. It's landing on a Saturday, and this is where we are transitioning into the next part of our decode. This is the important date that I wanted to share with you all. I did talk about it in the last podcast, but we have, wow, get ready for this, guys. So I hope you're taking notes. But we have next Saturday, July 27th, again, in this theme of weekend events. It will be tied to the Russia-Ukraine invasion, which happened on February 24th of 2022. And it will be 2 years and 22 weeks apart, the 222 code. Well, C19 and 9/11 were exactly 222 months apart. Also, Spanish flu lasted 2 years and 2 months. This is how I was able to determine about 8 months before C19 would come to an end, when it would end, around May of 2022. Because it had everything to do with 2 years, 2 months after the start of the pandemic. So this 222 code and the twos, it's so important, guys, to keep this stuff in mind. This recent Hurricane Beryl, it unfortunately took 22 lives, and this 22 code we've been seeing a lot throughout our time here together, decoding these markets, decoding this wild world we're in. But 222 year was very big. We had the Queen die, I believe, yes, and Pluto's return. So many things. I remember it was amazing back then to decode that Super Bowl before it happened and the way that it went with the Rams winning. They had the same colors as Ukraine. There were so many awesome decodes we were reviewing back then, and using the same decoding system over time, it's gotten more refined, more dialed in, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. What we're showing you is the significance of this connection to that key date, and I think that 222 matters a lot. So this is just the beginning. We're just getting started on the power behind next Saturday. So if we include the end date, we're going to tie this to the Great American Eclipse, which was on the 8th of April this year, and they are 111 days apart, the 111 code, just like 9/11 is the date that leaves 111 days in the year, bringing 9/11 back into the mix. Now notice how between 9/11 and July 27th, they are 47 days apart. And this upcoming election will determine if Trump or maybe somebody else will become the 47th president of the United States, if it ends up not being Joe Biden, of course. And some of you are probably aware that Donald Trump was the 45th president. Naturally, 4 plus 5 equals 9. And 4 plus 7 equals 11. 9/11 code hidden in there. So please keep that in mind. This 9/11 being 111 days apart, July 27th is, the 111 days left in the year. July 27th is 111 days after the Great American Solar Eclipse tied to America. We're talking about the next U.S. presidential election. And this July 27th date also happens to have our key number of 24. This is the main number of this year because we're in the Gregorian year of 2024, also in the Hebrew year 5784. You've heard me say it a billion times now. This reduces to 24. And that number 24 esoterically is 2 4s, which becomes 44. And if we connect this date of July 27th to Donald Trump's recent birthday on June 14th, you'll see they're 44 days apart. And I believe, and he was the one that took out 44th President Barack Obama to become the 45th president. Anyways, there's tons of 44 code for Trump as well. But the point here is that this was just one of the nuances of many of this July 27th date. I believe the one that I just shared prior to that was a lot more significant. But when you have this 111 code in the 9/11 day, and then you know it happened in New York, which has a 111 in its code, 28th week of the year we just had, this last week ended with Donald Trump's assassination attempt. He's from New York. I mean, this is wild, man. It's wild stuff. So I believe I even brought up this July 27th date in the last podcast. I believe I mentioned the connections to 9/11 and this building 7 idea and how we should expect a 7 code ritual, and that July 27th is 14 days after the assassination attempt. You can see July 13th to July 27th, we have 14 days. 14 is 2 7, 7 plus 7. Then the day before is the 77 double-digit date numerology, the day it's leading into. And the day before, July 26th, this isn't as powerful for my code. I'm really putting most of my emphasis on July 27th. So now let's connect this 27th date to another key player in the script, which is Joe Biden. And we have his next birthday being on the 20th of November. Including the end date, this is 117 days apart. And this is where the decoder really gets fun, and something that I talk a lot about with the month names and what they should really symbolize. And we've talked about how September, it should not be the 9th month in the system because septem in Latin means 7. And this 9/11 ritual was actually a 7/11 ritual, Hence, it was the Twin Towers, two pillars, 1 and 1 is the master number 11. And then building 7 magically fell. Again, the 117 code. And here we have from July 27th to Joe Biden's next birthday is 117 days apart. And I told you earlier, perhaps Joe is building 7, where he magically gets taken out of the picture and replaced. And I had some kind of almost satire but fun decode I shared over on x.com. I wasn't being so serious, but more sharing a crazy idea that I had during the Bearable Bull interview about Big Mike coming into the picture potentially after like a couple weeks of Kamala. And that whole idea there was based on our conversation. I talked with him about how I personally believe there would be more civil unrest that could go down if Kamala was to become president than Trump getting assassinated. And I know that that's very controversial and very polarizing, and just know that I don't want anyone to be harmed in this world. I don't wish harm upon anyone. It's tragic to know that anyone's passing. I mean, I don't know any of these people that we're talking about, and neither do you. Very likely you don't. So it's not that I get any positive feelings or good energy or feel right about my decode or any of that shit. It really doesn't affect me at all. I'm staying neutral in the process. But if Joe Biden was to die this year, or the Trump situation would have actually went down as potentially the CIA planned, then I wouldn't have an emotion towards it either way. But I know that it would have created some serious chaos. But I still believe that if Biden was to go and Kamala was to become president, that would be very, very volatile. I don't think these QAnon people, like these diehard Trump supporters, would be having it. They would lose their shit, and that right there would be the opportunity for the New World Order to put in Michelle Obama. And now you would have like a repeat of the Obama-Trump election. That would be so symbolic. The masculine Obama and then the also trans masculine Obama. But, you know, to have the Obamas, both, the couple, face Donald Trump twice, like, that would be so symbolic of the Aquarian age, of this genderless kind of like, yeah. Anyways, I am having fun with this decode. I hope you guys are too. I'm just kind of giving you a stream of consciousness right now about how I'm looking at it, but perhaps that could be how it goes down. I shared it over here on x.com just quite recently. Tower 1, Trump's arrest. Tower 2, assassination attempt. Tower 7, Biden's death. They blame it on something, whatever it is. And then we move into Kamala being sworn in, followed by some momentary civil unrest. Big Mike comes in to calm it down. And then you have Big Mike versus Trump. That would be exactly like 2016. Now, 2016, that was leading into the Super Bowl that the Eagles won. And remember, the Eagles just lost against the Chiefs the year during, what was it, the Russia-Ukraine invasion? Correct me if I'm right. No, it might have been last year. Anyways, there was something tied into that symbolically too. I remember a lot from that decode that I shared. You guys should check it out. If you haven't, it was the year of the rabbit decoded. I brought up Trump and the tie to the number 17 because of Q and everything going on with the year 2017 and the Eagles and how they won and how they were symbolic of Mercury and freedom and the original capital of the USA before it became corrupted even more and turned into DC and all of that. There's some story being played out here. I could talk about it. I could go in a lot of different directions, but needless to say, I don't want anyone to be harmed. I don't want anyone to die. If it goes down this way, it would be wild. It would feel like the craziest script of all time playing out. I know a lot of people did not expect that Trump assassination attempt. A lot of people last year expected Biden to go down. So now that everyone's confused and everyone's getting blindsided by event after event after event, while there's an ongoing war in the background, this would kind of be the environment where I wouldn't be shocked if Biden was to actually get taken out finally. This 27th date is really powerful. I hope you guys appreciated some of these ideas that I've been sharing. I'm not saying that Biden will die on this date, although it wouldn't probably shock any of us, but I'm definitely considering him to be ritualized before the elections, before his next, Super Tuesday, November 5th. And I'm taking July 2017, next Saturday, very seriously, for there to be something critical that happens in the scripted theater that we're watching unfold on the world stage. Lastly, consider that Joe Biden's birthday is with the 41 days left in the year. The year of the dragon started on the 41st day of the year, and 9/11, back in 2001, the year that the event happened, was on a 41 double-digit date numerology. 41 is your 13th prime number, considered by some to be a unlucky number. And right after 9/11 this year, so 9/11 of 2024, we're going to have a Friday the 13th. And this is something that I think could be important, because before C-19 was declared a pandemic, we had a Friday the 13th 2 days before, just like we have with this Friday the 13th. 2 days before that would be the 9/11 anniversary. And just consider the code that's playing out here, guys. This 9/11 connection for this year, it seems pretty important, pretty powerful stuff. So this 41 that we were talking about, just another thing that's making me feel that it could be part of the building 7 Biden being taken out sort of deal, right? Where it's like it wasn't a controlled demolition, they just sort of let it fall. And this upcoming July 27th that we've been decoding throughout today's podcast is 49 days apart from Friday the 13th. 49's our code. It's one of the key numbers. And remember, during C-19, the 49ers lost against the Chiefs right before C-19 was kicked off. So July 27th, guys, let's see how next Saturday goes. I plan to do a live stream that day, so we'll see the story when that time comes. Now, let's get into the market, review these charts, starting with Bitcoin, following up on the past week of price action, because as something I brought up earlier, we're getting this crucial wolf cross after a couple daily closes above 66K, and we still have this huge CME gap to the downside. And these usually get filled, but it's crazy because the last time that we had one equally as big was back over here during the March retail banking black swan. And I was reading something just a couple hours ago about the Basel Endgame from the World Economic Forum. It's an article that they wrote July 9th, just a couple weeks ago. It was super fascinating to read. They brought up a couple of these key events that have happened, and the whole article about the Basel Endgame is to kind of prepare you for what's likely to be on the horizon. And I believe that the deadline of the completion of this would be July 2025, so July next year. And I've told you guys openly, and I also have it very detailed with charts and lots of information, lots of data in my crypto decoding blueprint, my thoughts on Q1 of 2025, the year of the snake, and how I believe that's when the market cycle will initially peak, probably as a whole, meaning the stock market, crypto, everything, before March 13th lunar eclipse, the start of our next lunar cycle, and putting emphasis on January for Bitcoin, December and January. Remember, December this year, we have something called a black moon, 2 new moons in the same month. It's very rare. And I'll get to that in future videos, but I shared all this information in the crypto decoding blueprint. I've been getting amazing feedback since releasing that. I know you guys really love it, and one of the main slides that I shared when I was decoding the markets is something that we literally just did. It was this spring effect. I just shared it a couple of days ago, right over here. I shared this before we even moved down to this lower low, and it was this chart over here that I quoted. So this was released at the beginning of June when Bitcoin was trading all the way up here at about 67, 68K. We broke below this line to make a slight new lower low. So we have one drive to the lows, second drive to the lows, third drive to the lows. But every time we go low, we go slightly lower. And that's exactly what Bitcoin recently just did. We went low, lower low, lower low, and then look at the way we sprung out of that lower low. We broke below this horizontal support range, but then we came right back up above it. And then once we crossed above this level right here, which was this level, that completes phase 3. The next thing is we have to get above the heart line. And I drew the heart line at 66K because that was the technical level to consider. And we're now at 66K, guys. Like, this is crazy to see. Bitcoin got bought up so quickly with this impulsive buyback. And that's exactly what a spring feels like. It's a very impulsive, like V-shaped recovery. Think of the C19 crash, how we just cratered and then got back real quick. Well, that's the speed of which we recovered. But the weird thing is we left this huge CME gap to the downside, slightly below 60K. I told you guys in my update, I'm not a believer in the CME gaps needing to be filled because we have a couple of iterations where we have not filled the gap, and this was a black swan event back here. And perhaps what just went down with the Trump assassination attempt and the way that this market got bought up after that, immediately after that for the crypto market, it's a sign of the ritual. You take away energy from one thing, you put it into the next. And it was wild to see how the Trump assassination attempt probably gave him more support than ever. Like all this new prana and all this new belief, and it's pretty much across the board now. We're seeing people that are like, just want Biden out of this thing. Another thing is we're seeing these like very liberal people and people of color and like all these people around the world that were like very adamantly against Trump and wouldn't even say they would vote for him back in 2016. Now they're openly talking about them voting for him. It's amazing to see the script flipped so fast. But anyways, getting back to these charts, this gap is now in this precarious zone where we might not fill it. And I talked about in my last video how August, new moon. Please remember these things, guys, because these are nuances and they matter a lot, especially for those that are kind of tracking this market closely like we are here. August new moon has been a time frame to see a washout, like a real quick rug pull that's bought up fast. And I said that if there was to be a time to fill that gap, it would be likely in some sort of event like that. I have a hard time believing that Bitcoin's just going to reverse right now and me mosey on down slowly over the next 2 months to fill this gap. I really don't feel that it's going to go that way. It'll not shock me if, first of all, we don't fill the gap at all. And it also wouldn't shock me if we did fill it, it would be a violent, fast move to the downside that's bought right back up. Okay? So that's kind of like what I see happening. Why would it make sense to see a liquidation ritual that's bought back up again? Because the market just went from extreme fear back to greed again in a single week. That's why. The market maker loves to do that stuff. They love to shake people out. And I've been through this before many times. I remember vividly one of the most important times in my career of doing technical analysis and also professionally trading was this moment over here, where we went up into the same time of year. We were bullish into August. If I zoom in, I'll put on the moon cycle indicator. We literally topped perfectly on the August new moon. Then we got to the September full moon and dumped, and we came right back down to this level over here that a lot of people were believing, well, Bitcoin got back below 10K. It's going to dump to 3K again. There was so much bearishness right here. The narrative got bearish fast. Big YouTube channels at the time were immediately flipping bearish, and a lot of people lost hope that this cycle would continue on, and it was because it was a very tough time to navigate. We were at the beginning of a pandemic, and we are not used to that sort of stuff. We've never had that happen in our lifetime. We had all this money printing going on, and businesses closing down, and nobody really knew, right? But when we follow the solar cycle theory, there's evidence that after solar cycles, we move up into our real all-time high. And that's why, I think if we had that information back then that I shared in my crypto decoding blueprint, that would have been a glorious opportunity to buy. But I started my crypto mastermind course literally back then, and I was buying that dip. I remember it. I was taking advantage of the fear, because one of the first things you learn as an investor is buy the blood in the streets, or buy the boredom. So all of this was just opportunity. And the reason I knew is because of Wyckoff method. I studied Wyckoff method tirelessly, and I learned that these shakeouts along the way are just supply tests. They're just the market maker's way of shaking you out so that the show continues sometime in the near future. And now that we know about these solar eclipses and the solar cycle, we have like the ticket to the universe, guys. How powerful this stuff is. And we're approaching that fourth solar eclipse soon. And I've mentioned several times how when we start getting closer and closer to this fourth solar eclipse, it's like getting closer and closer to blast off time. And the relationship that we have post-solar eclipse leading into our next lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle, which is March 13th, gives us a solid window to quote-unquote predict when the market cycle will come to a conclusion. Similar event happened last year where we had a lunar eclipse right here, the first lunar eclipse of the new lunar cycle. Imagine we don't have all this chart history on the right, but we were just falling into that moment, and that right there was the trigger point of the bear market. Of course, Bitcoin and a couple other isolated projects went up another leg higher, but generally that was the end. And all of the buying that was going on back here before the fourth solar eclipse was legendary buying. Well, guess what, family? We're before the fourth solar eclipse, and I know that there's been a little bit of bullish energy and recovery lately, but we're still not in price discovery. That means we're still in opportunity zone. Maybe not for Bitcoin as much, probably not as much ROI, but in the altcoins for sure. And I hope that's motivating for people right now to know that it's not too late. And if you did not take advantage of that dip that happened in July, then I don't even know what to tell you anymore. Like, you're just too scared for markets then. No offense, you need the red pill. We need to stop being afraid at these times because we're in the middle of a bull run. I can't say the same thing for the stock market indices, though. They are absolutely overheated. They absolutely need to correct to have a healthy market moving forward. But we've seen July be the most crazy month in markets. July and August be the craziest month in markets during election years. So this is not a shocker. We've had this chart up on our screen every video for the past, I don't even know now, 7 months. So you guys should be familiar with this and should have been prepared to know that July and August for the traditional markets are pretty damn bullish. And we'll cover this more next week when we do the S&P Year of the Dragon analysis. But we had this buyback to above 66K. We're looking really good. The rip the band-aid off moment is behind us. And if we're going to have a fill of the CME gap to the downside, then I do suspect it's going to be a short and sweet flash correction. And I went through this August flash correction thing so many times now. It's tied to the August new moon. Watch the last podcast or the last YouTube video I released, and you'll have more information on that. But yeah, so the gap is open. We're making it into the full moon as we speak. So this was a very bullish first phase of the full moon, from the 5 days before to this current moment. But we do have a lot of the time a little bit of a turnaround after the full moon. We see this right over here after the halving. So we pumped into the full moon after the halving, and then look, about 8 days later we had it we had the chart bottom out. So don't get so wrapped up in any of these like pivot points at this time. Like, you should have been taking advantage of the extremes in this market, which we already had on early July. If we're going to come back a little bit and back test the 63K level, that would be very healthy, but we don't need to. Like, Bitcoin is really ready to expand. So we can't be wanting too much more downside now is kind of the emphasis of this analysis. If you're still wanting more downside, then you missed the show. Like, you missed the plot. We've been talking about downside now for 4 or 5, 3-4 months. After Bitcoin broke into 74K in a straight line, I started immediately talking about a pullback, about how we need to have a healthy market cycle correction, mid-cycle correction, or else the bull run's going to end a lot sooner. Now, some people have been coming to me and telling me, well, what if this becomes a distribution? Like, what if we were to roll over here and this was to take one more leg lower? Well, then that would be a distribution, and that would likely be a different type of bull run that we haven't seen. And the thing that could trigger that is a black swan. But with this cyber attack that happened a couple days ago on the 19th, it was like the most bullish thing to happen for crypto, because it's decentralized, or Bitcoin at least. I know a lot of people that know a lot about Bitcoin have this argument that like it's centralized because only a couple wallet holders, but like really though, it's the infrastructure is decentralized. We don't need to argue about that. And anyone who wants to argue about that is just, it's like, it's boring now. It's exhausting. This is the new world order. It's the same thing with ETH. It's the same thing with XRP. It's the same thing with all these cryptocurrencies. If they make it to these insane market caps, it's because the new world order is allowing it. Don't get it twisted. So of course it's operated, managed, and handled by the new world order, but it's an opportunity for you to play the game. Don't let the game play you. One of the worst ways the game could play you is by you sitting in fiat money with paying money into a retirement fund so that the government could eventually give you back an allowance like a child when you're 80 years old. You know, that's the way to let the game play you financially. You guys are awake, you're savvy, you're investing. It's really not sophisticated to have 0 Bitcoin because of some random conspiracy you heard about it being centralized because some wallet holders own most of it, when in reality it's the internet, and in order to kill Bitcoin you'd have to kill the entire internet. And the one attempt that we've seen with this tabletop exercise to do something of that nature, it was still effectively a bid higher for Bitcoin. So I have a theory personally that these cyber attacks and all the shit that's going to go down on the world stage step by step, and war, and this is a sad thing to say, but those two things are bullish for Bitcoin. Having weird things happen on the internet and stuff go on with this war narrative, it's going to be bullish for Bitcoin. It's just kind of the way it is. War makes money for investors. Now, moving on, we've hit a technical level of around the 702 fib on this horizontal trading range. We've made it back into the golden pocket above 66K, which is again that key level that I've been sharing for some time now. And we would like to see Bitcoin hold that level, maybe for getting through the month. If it can close the monthly off anywhere where it's at now, it would look really good. But let me show you the real level to keep in mind. You see this resistance that we've been getting for the past 3 months, meaning that if Bitcoin can close above 67,500, and I would just say you could write down 68K. If Bitcoin can break above 68K, that would be a big price discovery trigger, because it would show that this is not a resistance anymore, and that this is in fact a very, very important support level. 60K is your support, and this is in the process of a a range bound reversal, I should call it, because that's all we've been lately, is a range bound. In the grand scheme of things, we're bullishly breaking out and we're in a trend reversal, and we've been closing higher monthly candles than all the monthly candles from our last bull cycle, so we're looking good. but just stalled out at resistance. And the key resistance level is still 71,500. But to wrap up this more macro analysis, we'll check in with the weekly chart. And I just want to show you the relationship that Bitcoin has with these exponential moving averages, because we had the tap down at the 34 EMA. We bounced straight to the 21 in the following week. And then now we're breaking above it and we're looking really good. So we would be back above the 13 EMA and the 8 SMA. This is unbelievable how quickly this got bought back. And now we've just bounced off the 46 level in RSI and we're heading into 60 RSI on the weekly. We just reset our RSI. That's so bullish. Like, this really feels like we're in the next, final moments before breakout. Because we knew we got too overheated back here in March. We had RSI near 90 RSI in the weekly, man. We needed to have a pullback. Then we got back to 45 just at the beginning of July and have had this really nice impulsive bounce. So if we can get back above 70, I think that would be in alignment with also breaking above 70K. But this bounce that we had off the 34 EMA was amazing. Really, really bullish. So things are looking good. We got a bi-weekly. Okay, bi-weekly coming in next week, and it's clear the resistance here is at about 68K. So that is another time I'm mentioning 68K. Keep that in mind. Okay, let's go to the daily on this horizontal chart. We got our wolf cross. Things are looking good. Where are we at with the RSI? RSI is still below 70, so we're not even into overbought yet, and we're at the 702. I think if we can... Okay, I'm going to share my setup right now. I want us to come back to back test the 55 simple, hold it, and then if it could break this level here, I think that would be the most bullish thing at this time. Right there at the 55. Wick down into the 0.5 fib, back test this micro bull trap before the next leg lower. But we already did it. We already did it over here, and it's been bullish. So yeah, like, I'm really this is really pulling hairs right now. We're in the process of breaking out. Like, that's all I can say. This is what we've been waiting for. We got our deeper pullback. We're looking good. Yeah, that's all I could say. I really don't have too much more of an update. We've been tracking this for so long now, over 140 days, and we finally got our spring. This really confusing shakeout, which brought a lot of altcoins down about 70% from their March highs, and that's exactly what crypto market does in the middle of a bull cycle, what I would call a mid-cycle correction. So yeah, we have 71.5 is what we need to break to the upside, and then we have potential short-term backtest after this full moon. A healthy correction would be somewhere between 63 and maybe 60. And if we're gonna go that low, might as well fill the gap, and I believe that gap fill will follow with a quick bounce, similar to over here. And remember, the full moon of April after the halving went a similar way, where it took about 8 days after the full moon or so to bottom out, and then we bounced very quickly back into 70K territory. Now let's go over to I don't really have too much to say about Ethereum, because the chart hasn't really done anything besides, yeah, I mean, we had this wild breakout on the 15th. That's the same thing Bitcoin's done. Yeah, last Sunday, we just came really back up into the level that we were holding before this broke down. So we've just gotten bought back like a V-shaped recovery. There's not too much to say here, but we are about to get a wolf cross. So we're about to have this 8 simple cross above the 55, and that would be good if we can have that happen whilst a little bit of a retest, even though we're pretty much there. I mean, it doesn't make a difference at this point. This was a V-shaped recovery. Getting below the 200s was a gift on ETH, for real. And the fact that it held this support all over here in the process is amazing. So ETH is looking really strong, really, really good. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a back test to 3,200 would be in alignment with Bitcoin coming down to 63 or 62K. Now, XRP, really sharp buyback. I shared this chart over on X a couple of days ago, or maybe 2 days ago, of these four peaks being about 120 days apart. And this peak over here is with the SEC, the SEC versus Ripple case, where where the XRP was no longer deemed a security. Sorry, I have a lot going on in my mind, but this is where these four patterns started. And then you could see 120 days after that was this peak over here in the November timeframe. Then 120 days after that was this peak over here in March, when Bitcoin was initially breaking out into price discovery, into new all-time highs. And then we have 120 days later has also been this sharp move to the upside that we've just gotten, followed by the Twin Towers candle. And now we're like holding 55 cents. So I am not calling this the end of this rally that we're on right now, but it's been a pattern. Okay, so what I would like to see is XRP break 72 cents. And I kind of have to leave my update at that, because until it could break this top level of the horizontal trading range of phase 5 over here, we're just ranging now. We're still in the range. And that's really what the analysis has been. So we'll keep tracking this, but we're looking so similar to the final moments of the March 2017 moment for XRP. And I believe that this is mimicking. And what I shared with you all in the last update on XRP was that if I was to take the amount of days from this support level or support test to breakout, it was perfectly aligning with this upcoming August new moon, like the first week of August. So it seems that August is the time frame to get that 80K Bitcoin and the $1 XRP breakout, breaking the first peak over here where we had the SEC Ripple win in the SEC case. So I'm going to keep it at that. There's really not too much more of an update because we're range bound. We're still kind of between that zone, and you guys know the story. It's been a lot of updates, a lot of attention I've been giving XRP lately. So a lot of people keep asking me about like my upside targets and my everything that's going on with that. I already went over that with the Bearable Bull interview, so go check that out. It's posted on his channel, and I will be making a very thorough step-by-step exit strategy update on XRP when the time comes. But if you have my exit strategy blueprint, it's already there. It hasn't changed at all. I don't intend to change it because the targets are the targets, and TA doesn't change. The only thing that could change is the environment that we're in. And I've talked about this with Bearable Bull. When you start entertaining $100 plus XRP, then you're talking about some serious problems in the world. Like having a $500,000 Bitcoin means that your gallon of gas is probably going to cost you $30 or $25 or something, because it's all correlated, okay? This is important to consider. Like if you look at food prices back when Bitcoin was invented and Bitcoin started actively trading in 2011, look at food prices back in 2011. Look at the cost of housing back in 2011, the average cost of rent, the average cost of living. Look at it back in 2011 and then compare it to today. And you'll understand why it would hurt my stomach to think about a world with a $200 XRP or a $500,000 Bitcoin. I know it sounds nice for your portfolio, but the everyday man is going to be struggling quite a bit then. The price squeeze is going to be too intense. And then it's all just about the inflation game, which if you invested, you were on the right side of. So hooray for you, hooray for us. But you need to be understanding of the ramifications of this, guys. And we might be one of the few communities that are really conscious enough to talk about that, because I know it's a little bit uncomfortable, and I'm not trying to, make it sound bad that you're making a bunch of money with these investments, but there's another story at play here, right? There will be a wealth transfer, and in order for with a wealth transfer comes a lot more poverty, a lot more loss, a lot more depression, and people need to talk about that, not just wear the rosy glasses, as they say. So anyways, my upside targets haven't changed. They've been the same that I've been talking about for years now for this next Bitcoin price discovery cycle. It's going to be all about Bitcoin price discovery. And I thoroughly talked about it on the podcast with Bearable Bull. So I'm going to be going over now to Nano. It's been some time since I've covered this. All right. Wow. So Nano has been down at like C19 levels. So this was the C19 crash. Nano is still pretty much trading back at that time frame. Then when it got to about August, it peaked out and then had a deeper correction. Over here, this peaked out in March, so as above, so below. I'm wondering if August will be like the lowest it goes. That would be interesting. But anyways, then we had this backup phase followed by the true breakout, which ended in May 2021. But this thing is still down near the 236, and I know that there's probably way more chart history for this. That's fine, but really what is concerning is it being all the way down here at the C19 levels back in March 2020. That means that this chart hasn't made any progress in 4.5 years. That's not great. Whilst Bitcoin was probably at $8,000 here, when this thing was at $1, Bitcoin was at 8,000 and now Bitcoin's at 67,000. So this is a super speculative altcoin, something you would consider venture capital. You wouldn't want to bet a lot on this. This whole bear market for this project has been super arduous and choppy. And it's effectively still down like probably 95%. Would you look at that? 94% down from its all-time high. Very little progress in this thing. And for it to have made it through several eclipses in our solar cycle, this thing is really, really suppressed, and it feels like it will probably take the 4th eclipse of the solar cycle for this thing to kick into overdrive mode. But it also has an X in it, and the X coins are definitely suppressed. It's pretty obvious with XRP, Stellar Lumens, XLM, and then XDC. There's plenty of others. We've been talking about it a lot. There's clearly suppression in the X coins, so I believe theoretically they'll all rise together since we're in the year of the X. But this year of the X is also, you have to think about the symbolism here. Year of the Dragon is also matching with the year of the snake, both serpent symbolism, dragon, snake, and that's your X. So 2024 and 2025 have this really important relationship with each other. And that's still why I feel Q1 of 2025 has a lot of power for this specific crypto bull run. And that could be the trigger point, would be the next solar eclipse for all the X coins. XRP, though, I believe it's going to front run it. Has a lot more chart history than something like Nano. I mean, at least I believe so. XRP goes all the way back to like 2013. Same case with XDC. Like that was only really introduced during the last bull run. But that's a side note. Needless to say, this has a lot of room to the upside. To just get back to prior all-time highs would be 1,700%. So a little venture capital in this wouldn't be bad, but it's still, you're betting on a project that has very poor performance in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, be careful with this stuff, guys. Not the most beautiful chart. Oh, forgot to add EWT. Going to be putting that on now. That's Kraken chart. What's going on with EWT? All right, so very limited chart history. As you can see, this was about April 2020, so about a month after C19 started. Even in the April levels, this thing has made a little bit of progress. It's up about 100%. Still nothing crazy going on there. This also, Energy Web Token, not looking so good. It's pretty much near the bear market bottom. It's near the October eclipse levels. So since this recent May top in May, It's come down back to its lows. This is not looking good. Oh, okay. So I see something important. This was your October solar eclipse. We came over here to backtest this level, played around a little bit with the support, a little bit of a kickback. After the kickback, we broke below it, got rejected on the outside of a prior support, which flips it into a resistance. And then we've broke below this level right here. So this is really looking bad. Yeah, I wouldn't invest in this thing at all. This crown top distributions that it's having and how down it is compared to a lot of other projects right now, back near the bottom, way below the 236, is looking insanely weak. Clearly this is just a retail panic selling and then getting involved for a little bit and taking money out, and it's not looking so great. Regarding the buyback to prior all-time highs, let's see what percentages we're working with here. So about 800%. It's like you're better off with Dogecoin in this case. What's Doge returning back to all-time highs? 400%. And then we have the fact that it's hit the 1618 on every cycle so far. So even if it only makes it to 3, I mean, you're still talking 2,000% from where we're trading right now. And this is a project that's been around since 2014, and it's always hit the 1618 target, even superseded in the last cycle. And look at what this has happened recently. Come up to the 0.5 fib rejection, tapped on the 236, and then got bought back. If this thing could break above this level right here, it's going into price. It's going into the next phase of the bull run. But something like Energy Web token, very, very poor performance. It's effectively trading back at the C19 levels too. Not much better. So, yeah, I don't like this chart. There is very little structure. It's continually making lower lows, and for the fact that it's all the way down here when Bitcoin has gotten bought back up from 58k, what was it, 53k to 67k, and this thing has had no buyback, and it's pretty much pushed down another 40 to 50% correction. It's no bueno. Yeah, there's really nothing to say about this. I would pass. Okay, we're moving on to WorldCoin. All right, interesting. So WorldCoin, very, very new project. I'm going to extend this out. All right, cool. Yeah, that trend line ended up being very powerful. So I'm going to go ahead and extend this more because this could be telling us where the next big surge is if this is to continue its price discovery. Wow, that does kind of align perfectly with the 4618 into the end of the year at like $80, which is a possibility, of course, on shit like this. So the play here is that we have a very small fib pulled from here to the swing low. We've made it to the 1618 with a perfect rejection, then came back to the top of the golden pocket. After the backtest on the golden pocket, we moved up another leg higher, came back to the 1618, and then that's where things started to look messy. So from this top to full correction has been 80%. When you see something that has a very cultural moment behind it, such as WorldCoin with ChatGPT and OpenAI and all the stuff going on there, and it has an 80% mid-cycle correction, that's typically a buy opportunity. Well, we backtested the 786 on this correction and went higher. In this one, we went even deeper. We went all the way down to the 618, the bottom of the golden pocket. What I would like to see now is, it's just amazing. I drew this red line. I don't even know when the hell I drew it. You guys could look up the last time I covered WorldCoin. But we're back at that red line again. And that's a critical level. If we can't hold this level right now and get back above the 1618 pretty soon, this could wipe out to another leg lower and go down to the 382. And then I really think that's like a lights out moment based on the chart. But because we're in crypto and because AI is so big and because we're kind of just getting started with a lot of that stuff, it would not surprise me if this does move up with the overall altcoin market into the next phase of the bull run. And I would keep that $60 to $80 target, $60 to $90 target in mind. And if we're going to look at where we are to where that is, that would be fucking unbelievable. We're talking about a 2,500% move. That's similar to the Dogecoin move. It wouldn't be unheard of, though, by the way. Where this is bottomed up to that level would be a 7,000% move. We know a lot of altcoins in the last cycle went up 70,000%. So this isn't like pulling numbers out of thin air. That's very possible for this project. At this time, though, rejection at the 1618. Top of golden pocket retest. Break higher. Come back to the 1618. Trade on it for 2 months and then couldn't hold and broke down. That's very ugly. I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like this. If I'm being intuitive right now, I don't like the way that went, because it went even lower than January. Pretty much gave back all of its yearly returns. Even though this bounce has happened, it's not convincing to me. Okay, yeah, I don't like the way this looks at all, this whole chart. But then there's another part of me that's like, well, AI is it's the thing, right? It's like it's where all the prana's going. But there's probably a lot of washout in the AI sector, because things just got too overheated in March. All right, well, I mean, I've shared the analysis, I've shared the levels. Let's move on. I don't really think you guys care about my commentary on my opinion here. You want the analysis. Now, this is a new project I've never looked at. It's called Stowbox. Then we're going to wrap up today's podcast. So I did find a chart that was a little bit longer, about 3 or 4 months or maybe 5 months more of chart history. But effectively, it launched around the level that it's trading at now, I believe. It peaked at $38 and then gave up like all of its value. Okay, so this lost it lost everything. Then it had this move of 5,000%. It's moved an amazing amount to the upside. But you got to remember, guys, that this is like these type of projects nobody really hears about till they're already doing shit like this. That you really need to investigate this stuff in advance. So now that they've made this move, I don't really get too caught up in it. Like, there's so much shit like this going on, and a lot of it loses 99% of its value. And along the way, look at these corrections: 75%, 70%, 60%. This thing is just continually having huge corrections. So when you're looking at your portfolio of this stuff, it's those plays that are venture capital that are in such small quantities that you don't even look at. Just throw $100 in it and say whatever. We'll see where this goes, and you'll be surprised, right? But tracking it week by week and being a chart analyst such as myself and looking at charts like this, it's like really not convincing to invest in. It lost everything, and then of course it has an opportunity to be bought back, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean it's a good investment. You understand what I mean? It just means it's speculative. It means people are speculating on it. And if you're somewhere on the right side of that speculation wave, then congratulations. But I bet you if somebody bought around here, they were not able to stomach a 70% move to the downside to wait for this thing to move up another 600%. Almost no one bought this shit down here. They were just perpetually panic selling it. Because look, this was 5 months of this just chop before it broke out. A lot of people were not here investing in it. They were selling it. And then there was a FOMO pump. And then it went back into a very arduous sell-off phase where, again, a lot of people weren't able to navigate it. So this is kind of what it is. And when I see stuff like this, it's an opportunity to share words of wisdom. But I could do a little bit of TA to make sense of what we're seeing go down right now. Yeah, up to the 6 again. Too dramatic. Similar to what's going on with the WorldCoin thing. It's if it cannot hold this 1618, it could come straight back to back test this one fib, or the one spot extension. And even deeper is the 786, because this doesn't need to move with the overall crypto market. This could be in isolation, making 70% corrections, and then 700% moves to the upside, and then another 70% correction, and keep going. It's really one of those buy and holds and then just forget about it. But you need to be ready to de-risk or profit take on shit like this before the next bear market. Otherwise, you're just watching it lose all of its value. And this thing is still technically in price discovery to the downside. So until it could break 38 cents, it's never really had a breakout, a true breakout. It just sold off everything from its launch, and it's had this opportunity to rise since all of the value left. That's really the only thing that's going on here. So I would personally be weary of getting involved in stuff that's already made this much of a move at this stage of the bull run. Okay, I would look away from all the shiny objects right now and look towards the stuff that has a little bit more utility, a little bit more use case, and less likelihood of being a victim of a cyber attack or something really unexpected on the world stage. And we're pretty close to regulation time. I think the SEC case with Ripple, mixed with a potential Solana ETF approved and the launch of the Ethereum ETF, all kind of paves the way for stuff like this to go away forever. Hence why, yeah, you just need to be a lot more cautious with how much capital you put into projects like this, and then have the stomach to be able to ride these big swings. So I'm going to end today's podcast there. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you got some valuable takeaways from this Red Pill podcast number 173. We have this key date to look out for next Saturday, July 27th, leading into our monthly close, which I believe we have an FOMC meeting right at the end of the month. So remember what I told you about that new moon of August flash correction. That could very well be in alignment with something that happens with that FOMC meeting. And then it's just momentary. Stock market corrects enough, and there's a recovery. So I'll be covering the stock market next week. Hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. I'll be catching you all very soon with a midweek update if needed. And until then, much love.